What's happening, wrestling fans? Two Rose Wrestling Show coming at you on a fine Sunday evening, on time and under budget. What's happening, Kevin?
Doug, we are ready to talk about last night's happenings at Money in the Bank. We had quite a bit, actually, to break down and discuss for the folks in our main event tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Some good stuff happening.
Some good stuff happening in our main event. As always, though, before we get to the main event, we got news.
The not so good stuff?
It's stuff we have to talk about, but it does seem to be here lately not always the most pleasant of topics because, last week we opened with the shocking news that R-Truth's contract was not being renewed. And we're obviously going to have a little more on that later in the show, but we're going to start this week with something similar. And though less shocking, it's still more non-renewals leading off our news segment. Carlito, who has been, entertaining. Cool. It's not definitely cool for Carlito because he is one who's not having his contract renewed. Obviously, this was his second go around with WWE. Really, this time he didn't do a whole lot other than comedic stuff, hanging around with Judgment Day. But what he was asked to do,
he delivered.
He did well. He did exactly what was asked of him. But yeah, he is not coming back, and also not coming back, we found out this week, not being renewed, is Valhalla, also known as Sarah Logan. Logan was another WWE return that she was brought back, but she never really graduated to being placed back in the ring. She was really just regulated this time to being just a valet manager for the Viking Raiders, which of course includes her husband Eric Rowe, who is still with the company. So there are reports, though, that this is just the start of the cleaning out to just free up budget to accommodate all the new signings. So I'm sure there's a lot of folks, if you've been around a while or if you're being underused, you are not immune to this. I'm sure you're probably a little concerned about that.
I can imagine there's a lot of mid and just a lot of undercarders in general that are looking at their options right now and seeing if anybody has Tony Khan's number.
Well, here's one person that, at least for now, does not need Tony Khan's number while we're on this topic, because there was a lot of chatter, and I mean a lot of chatter online this week suggesting that the long-tenured WWE wrestler The Miz was on his way out. Now, part of that calculus that led to people thinking this is not just Miz's age and years of service, current place on the card, but just the fact that it just kept being repeated online that Miz had unfollowed WWE, removed WWE branding from his social media bios and all that sort of stuff. Well, Miz has set the record straight by posting a video on his Instagram shooting down all of this talk. He noted that he had not changed his profiles in years and that he had not unfollowed WWE, that he had been silent because he just didn't want to give this any more legs. But when I say a lot of chatter, it became so loud that he was pretty much forced to come out and say, hey, everything's cool. WWE and I were in good standing with one another. But, I mean, we'll see. Maybe that is the case for now, but there is obviously some moving and shakings going on the corporate side.
Yeah, it sounds like they're shuffling their deck to make room for new talent or just make room to make money.
You set me up real good, Doug, when this next story, and this is new talent, because last week we mentioned that Mariah May was done with AEW and would be making the jump to WWE. The only thing we were questioning last week is when and to what brand. Well, now we know that when is now, and the brand is NXT. She made her debut on Tuesday night. It is worth pointing out that her debut was, to me anyway, and I'm sure it struck you the same, Doug, kind of similar to Ricky Starks in that they just assumed the audience knew who she was. They intentionally did not mention her name at all, which is what they did with Ricky. And of course, the reason they did that with Ricky is so that they could rename him. He was rebranded Ricky Starks to Ricky Saints. The fact that the announcers did not use Mariah May's name could mean something similar as far as rebranding goes is in store for her too. They kept just calling her the Glamour, which is her nickname. But unlike Saints, she isn't using a stage name. Mariah May her real name is actually Mariah May Mead. So maybe she does get to keep it, or they will brand her something completely
something ridiculous like Triple M.
Oh Lord. Don't even throw that out there. Oh no, that's a terrible idea. Before I close this story, though, the word about surrounding this whole NXT arrival is pretty cool. In just that, I'll give it to HBK running the Performance Center down there, keeping kayfabe alive. Supposedly, her arrival was such a top kept secret that even the other women in the segment that she debuted in did not know about her involvement until right before they were going out there to shoot all this, which is so old school. I really like that, though.
You really think that's a Triple H, Shawn Michaels kind of thing? Because Triple H seems to do that quite a bit now on the main roster too, where things like the intervention in the main event last night, was kind of kept super hush hush until the people involved in it knew about it when it was happening, or right beforehand, right before everybody went out.
We are all so connected at all times. These are right in our hands. And so anybody backstage catching a photo, wanting to draw attention to themselves by being the first to break something, there's so many ways that nowadays the surprises get out there. And think back, for those of you that have been fans long enough that you remember the pre-internet days of wrestling, half of the fun was just being surprised. So I do think that as old school fans, Triple H and HBK, absolutely, they like that element of the business that has been lost a little bit. And whenever they have an opportunity to bring it back, even if it might seem ridiculous, like we all know she's coming, when is she coming? Just the fact they go that extra mile just to try to bring some of that joy of the surprise back, I'm all for it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's sneak people in trucks and, crates and, fly them on separate flights to adjacent cities. All of that stuff is, yes, out of their way ridiculous, but also shows how much they care about that element of surprise, which again,
it's great. It's great to be surprised in 2025 in wrestling. So
and you did foreshadow, and we'll get to that, because I really think with Mariah and then what you referenced, there's at least twice this week that they pulled it off, which again, in this day and age, kind of a minor miracle, right?
Exactly.
Mariah, before I leave the subject completely, I'm using her as a segue because, yes, she is the most high-profile AEW departure. We talked about it last week, but she is not the only one. We didn't talk about this last week. Probably worth mentioning that Abaddon was quietly removed from the roster page. Her AEW contract was not being renewed after 5 years with the company. And then, in addition, Bear Bronson was also let go. Bronson was one half of the Iron Savages and had not appeared on AEW TV this year. And that partly is because the other half of the Iron Savages, Bear Boulder, was let go in January. Doug, did you realize Bear Boulder had been let go in January?
I had not, but Tony has such a deep roster. It's kind of difficult. I just maybe assumed he was on Ring of Honor or something and hadn't seen that. I didn't know.
So why I ask you that question is that I didn't know either, and I just I guess we're off for the holiday stuff. I don't know how we missed this. So apparently Bear Boulder was let go in January after being arrested and charged with battery by strangulation.
Interesting.
Yeah, we missed that news story. He allegedly pushed his fiancée to the floor, put his foot on her throat until she lost consciousness. Yeah.
No, you can't do that. No.
And the charges were dropped at the request of the alleged victim.
So it goes. Okay.
Yep. Not good. Again, like Doug says, I get to do the not fun stuff here at the beginning with just all this wonderful news. Hey, actually, maybe this is kind of a good news story while we're talking about while we're talking about criminal histories, Doug.
Okay.
Apparently, Cash Wheeler now has none.
Oh, excellent.
Thanks to a recent expungement of the charges against him.
But I mean, with the heel personas that they got working right now, criminal records would just play into that.
It's right. It's terrible timing that this is actually expunged from his record. It would help
Yes,
when he was a face.
exactly.
But for those who don't know what we're talking about, the PW Insider reported this week that a Florida court has ruled to expunge the 2023 arrest of Cash to take it from his record. The filing was made on May 5th. So, as you'll likely recall, some of you will recall that Willer was arrested back in August of 2023, charged with aggravated assault with a firearm, allegedly flashing a gun at someone during a road rage incident.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those charges were dropped back in May of 2024, but I guess now it's officially expunged. So congratulations, awesome. Cash Wheeler. That's a weird thing to congratulate someone for, I realize.
It's, I guess, a positive thing for Cash. So
that's a happy story.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
This one actually is happy because it has happy right in the name. Because if you've yet to see the trailer for Happy Gilmore 2, if you're a wrestling fan, go check it out because it contains appearances by Becky Lynch, Nikki Bella, and MJF. While the ladies' roles in the film are not yet known, MJF is portraying one of Happy's sons. Happy Gilmore 2 premieres on Netflix on July 25th. Does that make you happy, Doug?
That does make me happy, but I'm just curious. If you're not a wrestling fan, why are you watching us right now?
Maybe I should have said, if you're a Happy Gilmore fan.
Oh, okay.
If you're not a Happy Gilmore fan, still, there's some wrestling connection there. And then finally, sorry, Doug, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
It's okay. I was just going to, I'm going to shut up. Go ahead.
I was just giving us a segue because this last story is kind of a good one into our Money in the Bank review. And that is last night during the pay-per-view, we got what we have all been expecting. WWE made it official that they were pulling the rug of WrestleMania out from underneath New Orleans. Prior to the main event, the announcers threw to a video of Triple H making the official word known that they are doing WrestleMania in Vegas for the second year in a row. The announcement made mention, the announcers themselves rather made mention to the fact that there's been a lot of speculation about where WrestleMania would be. And of course, I'm sitting there thinking, but there really shouldn't be speculation since you already made that announcement, but you caused the speculation by doing this. I don't know if you found it interesting or not, Doug, but I found it interesting that the city of New Orleans, or the fact that that they caused this speculation or had previously made an announcement already, all of that was not at all mentioned as part of this.
It wasn't at all mentioned. It's like one of those old school wrestling things. Oh, that never happened. That never happened. Oof. This is never happened.
Never happened. Not like, hey, we're moving, or we made a strategic decision, or don't worry, New Orleans, we're coming back. Just like a lot of speculation on where we're going to be. I'm like, well, you've made the announcement. There should be no speculation once you have an announcement until you make a second announcement that contradicts your first one, which is what they did right before last night's main event. Again, it is what we had all heard and knew was going to happen. And now it is just official, and they threw it out there in a most matter of fact, hey, don't look over here way possible.
I just want to know how mad was somebody in marketing to find out that they couldn't, use any double or nothing euphemisms. Okay, you can go with double down. Yes, Triple H, is cool to say that, but we can't have Triple H saying anything about doing double or nothing.
That's hilarious. I hadn't thought of it that way, but hey, at least they get to reuse any of the set pieces they want Vegas related for next year, because they're coming back, folks. Get your tickets now or exchange your tickets. I don't know. However that works. Tickets didn't actually go on sale yet, did they? They didn't sell tickets for the thing. Okay. But, well, at least there's that.
There's that. So that's a happy ending.
Now there's this.
and here's this thing.
Our own main event. That is our Money in the Bank review. We always start by telling you what we think of the pay-per-view overall in case you do not yet know who won or lost and just wants to know if it's worth your time. I'd say this one is absolutely worth your time. Not everything worked for me perfectly, but there was no dull moments. There was a lot of storyline development and plenty of entertainment value. So, thumbs up from this, bro.
Hey, you got a thumbs up for me because I found this a very enjoyable pay-per-view. I mean, Money in the Bank ladder matches are always a train wreck of a spectacle anyway. Yeah, thumbs
Maybe
up for
that's
me.
maybe that's a good place to start before we even get into spoilers. And it, like, to me, Money in the Bank has a hard time missing just because of what you said about it being a spectacle. Because it's
It
not.
is. Yeah.
You're always going to have two matches that will deliver high spots, oohs and ahs. It's a live action stunt show with a lot of different pathways
Yes.
they can go that sets up, in two instances, a storyline that literally could go for the next year. So just because of all that involved, it's really hard to have a clunker of a Money in the Bank match. Now they can be sloppy, just
They
because
can be sloppy, and
of a
I
lot
think
going on.
you can overbook in some situations too with
Yeah.
oh, this person happened and that's happening and this guy has his own faction and so does
But
that guy and
it's never uninteresting. It's never boring or
right,
slow. So from
never.
that point of view, Money in the Bank almost always delivers, and it did to these two bros. Let's talk about
Yes,
it.
let's do it.
As Trick and A would
Let's
say.
talk about
We'll start with the women's Money in the Bank match that kicked us off. Roxanne Perez versus Alexa Bliss, Stephanie Vakir, Rhea Ripley, Naomi, and Julia. Doug, I'll just say, coming out right from the start, Naomi's Money in the Bank outfit, I loved it. The caution tape, the money, she looked Money in the Bank already. I don't know if that was some foreshadowing or not, but
she looks so money. I love the wrestling gear she has now with like all the caution tape and like the rebranding that has been Naomi. Really do
yeah,
like that.
she's a good heel.
She is. She really
Who would have
is.
thought it? And maybe there's something else to say about Money in the Bank matches too. And I'm fine with it. We've just kind of, there's certain wrestling logic things you just kind of accept and get used to.
Yeah.
But when you have these multi-person matches, and Money in the Bank especially, because not only do you have multi-persons, you have multi-implements in the ring that you're working around. There always ends up like this contrived spot that gets two people in the ring at a time. You have all these people involved, all this weaponry involved, and 90% of the time, only two people are in the ring, and everyone else is laying around playing dead, which is always standard for these things.
And I don't know about you, but didn't you think that was kind of very much spotlighted in like the first 2 minutes of this women's match? Where I don't even remember the two women that were in the ring at that point. I was just so distracted by like, okay, everybody else just got like blown over like a feather and scattered. And there's only two people in the ring now. I don't even know what just happened, but it
is one of my first. Yeah, it's one of my first notes. So yeah, same thing. Yeah. It's like, okay, right away we're down to two people and everyone else is just gone. I don't know. Maybe to merch stand or popcorn break. I don't
bathroom
know.
break. I don't know.
I will say that the first really memorable spot for me, and she just stands out in everything she does. I'll be just frank about it, but Roxanne Perez is just so good. But her Hurricanrana springboard moonsault led to that first ladder attempt. One of the best spots of the women's Money in the Bank match, in my opinion. And I know it's something we've seen variations of before, but it does make sense when you get Julia and Roxanne working together to bury Rhea under all the ladders. There's, like I said, variations of the big person. We need to like dump all the ladders on them. But when you got someone running roughshod like a Rhea Ripley, I mean, if this was a real fight, what would you do? You would all gang up, try to incapacitate that person and eliminate him from the match. So that worked for me.
It worked for me. What got me there, and again, I don't even remember who was in the ring again, but that nothing was really wrong with Julia. Other than, she and Roxanne were throwing ladders on top of Rhea Ripley, but then it's like there's action going on in the ring that she should dive back in and stop, but I just see her just kind of chilling by a pile of ladders. Like, I don't know, maybe it was exhausting. I don't know. Maybe she didn't sleep well the night before. Who knows?
And speaking of just chilling, I mean, it should be noted that Rhea under the ladders, it's a nice long rest for Rhea under those ladders because she is gone for a long period of time. Alexa Bliss being dropped onto the ladder started the very first "This is awesome" chant of the match and of the night. Then, 10, 15 minutes later, Rhea arises from her ladder nap and gets back involved.
It was very. I think maybe it was Pat McAfee who even referenced like the Undertaker resurrection.
Oh yeah, he did.
Up
He
from,
did.
up from the ladders.
She's risen. Yeah, I thought
Yes.
maybe that was a bit of a jab at the fact that this is kind of silly. But
Yeah.
again, we all buy into the logic of these things, and you
Right.
don't think anything about it when you watch it because we've seen it so many times.
And this is why we watch wrestling anyway. I mean,
One thing we haven't seen a lot though, Doug, is that amazing Devil's Kiss spot on the ladder by Stephanie. And the fans did not like it after that when she looked like she might be taking this and Roxanne cut her off. They wanted the newcomer. The fans were hot for.
They really did.
It seems a lot of times these people make their debuts and we think of them as big deals at NXT, and then they come to the main roster and it takes a while to get their footing. She's going to be huge. I mean, she's going to be huge. Actually, all the women in this match that aren't already at the main event level, this was really WWE kind of showing out the depth of their women's division. And so many of those signees or people that are just recently up from NXT that are definitely there's almost a passing of the guard kind of moment when you look at the slate of women in this match. That dawned on me. And something else that dawned on me, Doug, and this is not revisionist history. Well, actually, before I get to that, a couple more things I want to touch on, because those double code reds, I want to talk about that. I thought that it looked cool. Got another, this is maybe a tad too cute, in the setup for it, but it worked, right? The fans this is awesome.
Totally worked. I love that she calls her code red Pop Rocks too. Love that. But too choreographed, because you could see Roxanne keep looking over her shoulder. You ready? Okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. Yeah. A little too choreographed there, but in the moment, I can't complain. It was fun.
What I was going to say, though, before I didn't want to lose the code red spot and see if you felt like I did, that it was fun, but maybe a little too orchestrated. But you and I missed this one. Like, neither of us predicted the outcome of Naomi coming out on top. But and this, again, is only in, like, watching a flow of a match. And I truly did, like, about 5 minutes before the end of this, did the count and the ring and who got their spots in and where we were in the match. And it just dawned on me. And I turned to my wife and I said, holy crap, Naomi's going to walk away with this thing. And I should have seen it coming. I didn't see it coming until the very end. But there at the end, I realized, like, all the likely winners or all the hot newcomers, the people all that got their spots in. And of course it makes sense storyline wise for Naomi to sneak in. She was just lying in wait. So we should have seen that she was lying in wait for much of this match. And I'll be honest, Roxanne would have been great. I liked your idea of, Alexa and re-kicking. But the idea of Naomi and where she is and the storyline to get her over to the heel side of things, she is the perfect person to hold this kind of gimmick, because that's what this is. It's a gimmick for up to a year. And it's always more fun when it's the heel that has these, because it is an opportunistic thing that, someone like a Rhea Ripley doesn't necessarily need, because, again, Rhea Ripley could just take what she wants at any given time. Someone like a Naomi, who has this change of heart, new character, this new edge to her, she is perfect for this gimmick, and we should have seen that coming. That she is perfect for the Money in the Bank. Being in the Miss Money in the Bank, I can cash in on you anytime and just basically steal it out from underneath you. Perfect for what she's got going on right now.
Absolutely. Do you think that maybe this sets up a long-term plan? While old school WWE wasn't much on like the long line stories, but a long-term plan here to mint Jade Cargill.
Oh yeah. Naomi and Jade's business is not through. But yeah, this will be fun to see when and on whom Naomi takes this out on. But definitely going to go down that path with Jade again. And Bianca's going to factor into this too. That this is a 3-person story that has not yet been finished. No.
Yeah. That's what I
And
was
before
thinking
we
too.
finish talking about the Money in the Bank match, I will also point out that I do like, and it's happened in the second match as well, the drone shots that we have been seeing from WWE the last few months. They have a whole different dimension when you're having a ladder match. You
Yes,
see a whole
they
different
do.
perspective when people are up high and the drones flying around them. I really like the way that it enhanced the Money in the Bank matches.
Mhm. And I think the performers need to be on their toes even more so on that ladder now, because I think with the shots that we're able to establish before, that communications has to be more tighter with the
Oh yeah,
performers up there. You can't be John Cena calling your spots, up there with the drone right in your face.
true that. And not the last time tonight we'll talk about drones, but more on that later.
Yes.
Next match we have is one that Doug and I did not predict because we did not know about it. In fact, no one knew about it until the day of. We had an
Right.
impromptu Intercontinental title match with Dominic Mysterio defending against Triple A's Octagon Jr. This was added to the show, set up earlier in the afternoon at Worlds Collide. This was perfectly fine for what it was. Again, not bad, but not, it didn't add a ton to the show other than getting some coverage of Worlds Collide on there. I did like Dom tying the mask to the rope. That's clever. But Doug, the crowd at a certain point got behind Dom. And I know some of that is probably carryover from what we saw at WrestleMania. But I also wonder how much of that is just unfamiliarity with the mainstream audience with Octagon.
Yeah, I've said recently that I think WWE has a Dominic Mysterio problem, and it's a good problem to have. But since WrestleMania, there's that vocal part of the crowd that is behind Dom and almost pushing for a babyface Dom, but then he just rides totally against that.
So, do you not think that Octagon? You don't think that it played into it? The fact that maybe the audience was not really overly familiar with him.
I mean, they're in LA. I think they are familiar with that AAA. Perhaps not. Let's say 40% of that arena is familiar with AAA. Yeah, I think a 40-60 split's good there. Just seeing what Worlds Collide filled up earlier in today.
Yeah.
And
And it was a tale of two audiences because that audience was actually hot and really seemed like they were really there for the AAA
yeah,
guys.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But
totally.
I did think that Dom was working a faster pace. Dom was working more of a AAA pace than a WWE pace in that match. I think, but Dom can do that because I mean his dad is Rey Mysterio, and
it is worth pointing that out though. I think that Dom, for as good as the DNA has always been and the moments that he's had, I don't know that he gets enough credit. We always give him credit for how unlikable he's been or the character he plays, and he's good at the facial expressions and unintentional comedy, all of that stuff. I think we sometimes don't give him enough credit for how much he's improved in front of our eyes. I mean, his in-ring work has actually improved, and we talk about the character, and I don't think he gets the credit for the fact that he was actually kind of green as grass when they put him out there.
I think that potential it's always been there. I think it's come with confidence and and getting comfortable with his with himself. But like you say, the DNA it's there and
let's be honest. I mean, there's great talent in WWE, but if you're going to work that AAA style that you mentioned, you can't hide. You can't hide facing an Octagon Junior in a AAA style match. If you're green, you're going to show green, and they trust Dom to have those kind of matches now, and I think it's awesome. He will get that face. I mean, they will be forced to do it at some point.
It will happen, but but it is interesting that kind of dynamic that goes on with the crowds. We don't want the audience hijacking anything, and hijacking creative. That never happens in WWE.
So we come to an end here with this match when Dominic hits a combination of his dad and his uncle's finishers to put Octagon Jr. away.
Or this deadbeat guy and his dad's finisher.
That's right. That's right. Up next is another intercontinental title match. This one we knew about, and Doug, I'll just go ahead and give you credit. You called this one. We had a title switch when the champion Lyra Valkyria fell to Becky Lynch.
But I really think this is for the better good of Lyra Valkyria, because it's always much more interesting when the babyface is chasing the title, not.
And we are 1-on-1. We're 1-1 now, so
right. Gotta have a rubber match. So
gotta have a rubber match. That's the point. I should have seen that coming too, but you did catch it and call it correctly. In this match, Becky didn't even wait for the introductions to be complete before she started. She let her introduction happen and then started wailing on Lyra, which is a great heel move. Almost had this match hijacked by a wardrobe malfunction early on. I don't know if Lyra just needs new gear or someone else working on the gear. It seems like she's oftentimes having to have someone retie the top for her. This time the referee obliged. So I didn't know that was a duty that referees perform, but apparently it is.
Other duties as assigned. It should be in every good job description.
I'm sure in WWE, I guarantee you that it is. Lots of early counters. Again, these two, this is the second match. They had great chemistry first time around. They still showed great chemistry this time around. That spike DDT looked really rough. I also, speaking of rough, Lyra's back bump into that post, and then she comes up bleeding from her shoulder. These women don't pull punches with each other.
No.
It's part of why it's great when they get in there together. But it was a tights pull for a new champ. And again, Doug, you called that one. But per the stipulation, though, that we discussed when we did our review, is Lyra had to raise Becky's hand, but Becky naturally milked it, expected more, wanted each side of the ring to get a view until, you say, now put the belt on me. Lyra had enough. We get a German suplex. We move on to, I know you talked about SummerSlam, but the more I'm thinking about it, we got a women's evolution pay-per-view coming before then.
True. Yes.
And this would be a good way to anchor that with a feud that's been sort of going for a while. And these two were just great. Again, I like this match. It was another one. I'd say for me, I'd rank it a tad below their Backlash encounter, but that's just me. I don't know.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think so.
But still good. Still
absolutely
good
still good. Good match.
And we get a blow off at some point, whether it is Evolution or SummerSlam, and that's based on the two before it. Gear up for 3. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of great, maybe that's a good segue here, because up next we have a great Money in the Bank ladder match, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match: Seth Rollins versus LA Knight, Andrade, Penta, El Grande Americano, and Solo Sikoa. So everyone turns on Seth to start with, then everyone turns on Solo, and guess what? That leaves 2 people in the ring.
At least this one was more logical. I remember what happened here and who was, but
that is true. That is true. They did spotlight how everyone got sidetracked instead of just suddenly only having 2 people in the ring.
It's just poof.
Everyone's gone. As with actually that does happen later, but going chronologically, I'll get to that. As with the women's version of the match, fast-paced start. Penta, the first real high spot when he not off the turnbuckle, but the ring pole itself jumps out on everyone else. And I want your opinion on this one, Doug, because for me, my taste, maybe just, and this is nothing with the in-ring action because I love this match, but just maybe a little too much time on commentary by Pat and Wade trying to argue that Chad Gable and Grande Americano are different people. I think it's a funny gimmick. I like it. And I get it for Wade because, he's a heel. So, of course, he's going to lie. But I've never quite understood why Pat fights so hard to try to convince Michael Cole, because he's the face color commentator. So he just comes across looking dumb or gullible, whereas Wade is trying to be deceitful.
Yeah, that's true.
Am I overthinking it?
Well, maybe I'm not giving it enough, because I've always thought about it as Pat being, the mouthy sport guy anyway. Who can wrestle? It's, he proved me wrong long ago on NXT, but that's kind of Pat's gimmick. So I just thought it's kind of that push and push and push is just part of Pat. That's why I
That is
always
true.
digested it. But
I don't
at the end
mind
of the
it,
day,
but there was a lot of time in this match of the two color commentators talking about the fact that Chad Gable and right down to the shapes of his nipples. Like, there was some really odd commentary that almost distracted by being too hard on the comedic side of what was going on. But I digress.
And I also wonder if they were trying to distract from some of the obvious setups that were happening in the ring, because I'm like, wait a minute, somebody's going to run up that ladder, balance, and they're going to go across. And if there's a ladder positioned right under the Money in the Bank briefcase, then that ladder could go to that. Somebody's got a cool spot planned later.
Yeah, and as we said, there's a lot that you just suspend your disbelief when you watch these matches. And then there's, as we mentioned earlier too, when you have this many people and this many elements at play, there's always going to be some things that don't go 100%. That Solo had an errant kick that missed the ladder that LA was holding, and so LA's just still sitting there holding, not sure whether to sell, and they had to redo the spot. But for the most part, I think even more than the women, they actually did a really good job in case in point. I should correct myself. The women did a great job, but I think there was a few more choreographed spots in the women's match. The men actually had a few of those spots that they hid better. I thought that there was a very well-constructed spot with Americano got the ankle lock on Seth over the ladder, which set up Penta. On one side, you had a sunset flip. On the other side, you had Penta doing a suplex through the ladder, and that could have easily come across as overly orchestrated. But somehow all of that happened, and it looked organic in its execution, which was amazing.
Yeah, at first I thought Penta was like just being a good bro and making sure that Seth didn't hurt himself. But no, he was setting up a spot to take out. It was a babyface ready to work a heel. So,
and then how about that Mexican Destroyer by Penta on Andrade? One of the best spots of the night, for sure. And then you get Solo mocking Penta, which is an example of just how much looser Solo Sikoa has become as a performer. Have you noticed how free and loose he's been after the Roman Reigns storyline?
Yes.
Way more confident.
Way more confident. And he has this really good, like, annoying heel work.
Yes.
It's you can't imagine the guy acting like that, or anybody really acting like that in real life. But yeah, here he is being he's just being a dick.
And so flamboyantly so, in a way that he didn't always show in the Roman story. And I'm loving it, actually. I think it's adding a new layer to his character that makes him more interesting. Gable just kind of did his sort of Lyra impersonation by somehow bleeding from the back in this. But of course, it makes more sense for him, I guess, with all the ladders that were around. And of course, he had the hilarious fireball ladder spot because, even the ladders now are sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah.
Bring in that money. And to your point about the mousetrap setup earlier, and Penta had to stall a little too long for that, but I still thought it was a cool.
I thought it was
Rubik's
great.
Oh my gosh, Gable starts on the outside of the ring and he gets up over a ladder to get onto the ring apron to bounce off another one that Seth was holding to get to the main ladder to stop Penta. It was, again, a mousetrap, but so fun.
And people were really, really hot for Penta, to grab
talk
that.
About a star. Absolutely. Yeah, he is money right now. Everything that from the moment he debuted on Raw, he was instantly a bigger deal than AEW ever allowed him to be, and he continues to be. I think he's going to be a main event player for WWE before all said and done. But main event players come no more main event than Seth Rollins. His crew gets involved, which we should have seen coming. That sets up Solo's men to come and get involved as well.
Match, no DQ, so it is what it is. So
I will say that during this portion of the match, it brought everything a bit to a halt in just the fact that suddenly everyone else went into a deep sleep that actually were participating in this match for a long time while all this played out.
So I thought it was kind of hilarious that Seth's like, get her out here, get out here now. And then it cuts to
Oh yeah, they're in no hurry.
his guys, and they're just chilling, just like this super slow, like stroll, like, yeah, we're badasses or whatever. And then out of nowhere, Braun Breaker is like spearing people.
But that's because he goes 0 to 60. He was in no
He
hurry
really
until
does.
he's like slowly like meandering, and then as soon as like hurry, and suddenly it's a bullet out of a gun, and he's in midair
Yes.
somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, that dude is sick. And that spear always looks great. And everything about this, yes, again, we suspend our disbelief as everyone else disappears for a long period of time. But what played out is memorable, right? So, I mean, they will play the I hate you as the counter to the I love you solo.
Yeah.
Fatu finally did what we all waited for him to do. Turned on Jacob. Turned on Solo. But man, the crowd pop, like they had waited so long, and finally Fatu had hit his breaking point, and fans finally got the baby face Jacob Fatu that they have been clamoring for, and I'm all about it. I cannot wait to see Solo just absolutely get dismembered by Jacob Fatu. The next step in where we're going with all this.
Yeah, and I love how he does his boogeyman, like shaking and twitching, and then just he's out, peace out, he's done.
That dude is something else, and the fans just would not let him be a heel for too many more matches. And this was the one where, again, perfect spot for it in the middle of the Money in the Bank ladder match, even if it meant everyone else had to bow out. And all of this distraction and chicanery just means that Seth, being an opportunistic guy, was able to take the Money in the Bank ladder match contract. And Doug, we did call this one correctly as Seth walked away with his second Money in the Bank victory. And just like with Naomi, except he's got a small army behind him now, it makes him a threat constantly with both, the big men behind him, Paul Heyman as his mouthpiece, and now whenever he wants. I mean, Seth's whole gimmick right now is picking the bones and taking advantage, and he is, again, I just think it works better than it does for a face to win the Money in the Bank. It really does.
Yeah, because there's no opportune time for that face to cash in because they're a face.
It's always a bit cowardly.
Yeah, absolutely it is. But, it definitely works so much better. And I really hadn't thought about Evolution until you mentioned it. But you're right. Evolution's coming up, and Naomi can just, circle, there. Because I'm sure both women's titles will be on the line.
It wouldn't be surprising to see some sort of Money in the Bank cash in at that event, or at least a tease. I think Seth's probably going to ride out. I think Seth's going to ride he's going to hold on and gloat about this. I think his will be the longer Money in the Bank storyline. I think Naomi will cash in first.
Yeah, I can see that. And maybe you're right. Maybe a tease there, but I think any tease that we get in the near future is going to be interrupted by Jade Cargill trying to redirect that and go, oh no, you're not doing that.
Not on my watch, you don't.
Exactly.
So we also called correctly the likelihood that the tag match, though it had no stakes really, would be the headlining match. And once you see it play out, it's kind of hard to argue that why they did it this way. You do have your bigger stars. You had Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul. So you had your two world champions in the same match. Obviously, it makes sense that no one's going to look at it and go, well, that's not a main event.
Right.
It was, I will say, they milked out just for time, like the very long, drawn-out intros. If you were hungry and at this point and needed to go make your meal, you would not have missed the opening of the match at all.
You really wouldn't have. But, I got to say, Logan Paul, first of all, he still has no right to be as good as he is, for being in the business as short a time as he has been. I mean, he has a very good understanding of it, and he's just so freakishly athletic. But I love his drone spot intros where, lets the drone go, flies out of his hands, goes around.
Like a bird flying out of his hand.
Yes. And then he goes to the ring and it comes and lands in his hand. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then, the drone spot
cool.
later on. And
it's cool, but man, you still want
he's
to punch the
crap,
dude in the
but
face, right?
yes, exactly.
There's nothing
Exactly.
likable about him, and I guess that is to his credit. That I mean, whatever you want to say about him, and there's a lot to want to say. I don't necessarily like him. I respect the work he's put into this,
Yeah, there
but
you go.
there is something to be said for the old school heel that doesn't want to be cool. Like everyone wanted. I mean, after the whole, I mean, from the NWO on, like it became cool if you were the heel to also get cheered and want to be cheered. You kind of got to respect someone who is just fine for being hated and does not want to be cheered. And that's certainly where Logan Paul lives, is that no one is going to cheer Logan Paul. There's not any Logan Paul merch being sold.
But yeah, it's so bizarre because the man has millions of followers across social media. Somebody out there likes him, but you're right. You
like to hate him.
Yeah. I think
not
people
cool
may hate watch him.
You want to see him fall on his face.
But
this was
all
great.
he doesn't fall on his face. He jumps onto tables.
Jumps everywhere. Probably one of the more athletic of the men in this match, and he's not the real I think that on commentary they've said that less than 20 matches on his resume. That's, I mean, at this point you would feel it feels like it should be more than that, but apparently not. As for the match itself, I mean, yes, it's a John Cena 2025 match. So yes, we got off to a methodical start in the early going. The biggest reactions were definitely for Cena. When I say methodical, Doug, I'm really worried about Jay's chin, because that poor man took a lot of chin locks. And it has to be a very sore chin that Jay is rocking today. I mean, not just from John Cena, but Logan Paul was following his mentor and applying the chin lock. They really were teasing out that hot tag. And we finally get it with Cody. Sort of a ridiculous, like, tension, dissension thing there that made kind of the heels look like chumps. But I guess it does play into both having oversized egos. But they, those men should have certainly seen Jey Uso doing the slow crawl across the desert for like a half an hour.
I'm trying to teach you something. Well, teach me. Okay, here, guys, over here, guys.
It's kind of funny in a wrestling sort of way, so maybe it works from that point of view. I will say, reaction after teasing it so long, the reaction for the Rhodes hot tag, considering he had not been in the ring since WrestleMania, maybe a little more muted than WWE probably would have liked. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I don't think that it's the death of the Cody Rhodes face character by a long shot, but I do think that we maybe have peaked as far as the just white hot popularity of that gimmick. It does seem like it. And then Paul, I know we were just saying that how much there is to dislike about him, but his athleticism, that pulverizer is a sweet looking move.
Yes.
It is a sweet looking move. And then you've alluded to it a few times. We must say it was an extremely innovative and neat perspective to get when you get to watch what a superplex followed by a splash looks like, all from the point of view from a drone.
And how about Logan Paul not dropping the drone at all,
taking the way those down
and holding on to it and only dropping it after the splash, which would make sense.
It goes rolling when you get squashed.
But hits the canvas, still holding on to that drone, and only he does it go flying after a splash. I'm like, again, no right to be as good or as talented or as experienced as he appears to be with what'd you say, 20 matches or something like that?
Less than. They said less than. And
he's like a 20-year veteran, who's taking really good care of his body.
And then there's that moonsault he did on Jay through the table. And honestly, that's what took the match to the next level. And honestly, also allowed for the finish by clearing the decks. That way we get a masked, hooded man run into the ring. R-Truth, man. Genuine surprise. After everything that happened this week, R-Truth turns on his childhood hero, gets his revenge, helps Cody get the pin on Cena. Obviously, the pin on Cena, even in a tag situation, is what happens here. It's not R-Truth. R-Truth will be part of this for a while at least, but it's Cody getting that rematch against Cena that he's still not got for Mania, hopefully to a better match than they had at Mania. But this was a fun way of getting there. I will say it was a fun way of getting there for me.
It was a fun way of getting there. You know, I question if we were worked or if this is one of those, well, he's here till his contract's over, so maybe we do something with that, you know, since they're behind it. Because I'm not sure if you've seen this, but well, I guess in the post show like press scrums that they do, like AEW does, where Triple H just leans into that it's a work, but then you got Truth's son on social media going, yeah, no, not a work at all.
No, and I don't buy that at all. That it was a story the whole time. No.
Yeah, then I've heard like other reports that Truth just straight up stopped answering the phone from WWE until Nick Khan called and said, hey, look, we got something here. And apparently his merch on WWE.com, I haven't checked, but it's Ron Killing's merch now. It's not R-Truth. It's Ron Killing's.
He is, his real name, which is good for him if that's part of his new contract. To come back, let me own it. So, like, you can't take my name. So that's awesome. And this whole match was kind of awesome, to be honest. The R-Truth return was fun. As with most Cena matches this year, very acceptable. Not much as far as in-ring work goes, but the drama and the entertainment coming from the other elements that surround all this, it's not great pro wrestling. I mean, yeah, it's great pro wrestling. It's great sports entertainment pro wrestling. Yes. That's what this was. That's what it delivered. And it worked for me, and it was a fitting end, a fitting main event, and a good conclusion to a good pay-per-view.
It was a good pay-per-view. It's good stuff. Fun stuff. I mean, even like little like over-telegraphed spots and everything throughout the night, not really that much, not really offensive, just kind of, oh, well, look, they could have done that better, but I can't really complain because I would not take that bump in a million years.
No,
so.
Exactly. It might have been set up, but then they took the bump, and I just kudos for someone being willing to do something that crazy.
Yeah. Yes.
Big finish time, my friend.
Man, this is hard tonight. This is really, really hard. There was a lot of incredible wrestling on this weekend, and
it was.
And then, you know, I don't. All right, I'm just going to spit some stuff out here because I've been running through these lists all day today, trying to figure out how I do this. So
I had some difficulty with my performance and match. I have a really easy botch that was for me really easy.
So for my botch, I'm going to go with an actual botch because it just looked a little awkward, and it was clearly a botch. Even like, you know, the announcer, you know, Corey Graves even called it out on commentary. I don't like Vikingo got hung up like somehow in his match against Chad Gable. He got hung up in his own weird tree of woe at one point. I was like, what is happening to this dude? What is going on? What is he trying to? Corey Graves like, I'm not sure what he's trying to do there. And I'm like, I'm not sure either, Corey.
Call it as you see it. If you don't understand it, don't try to sell it.
I mean, it was a great. Corey has grown on me so much as a commentator throughout the years. I didn't see it at first back in the day, but I thought, well, okay, it's cool. He can't really wrestle anymore because of his various injuries, so they're giving him a chance to do this, but this poor guy's not going to have a chance really. But he's come so far and did so much to enhance the entire, you know, Worlds Collide with Conan, because Conan was like this grumpy old man a lot. Hey, can I tell you something? Well, back in 1982, and I'm like, come on, Conan. This is why Corey's out there. But I mean, yeah, Vikingo getting himself hung up in the ropes. I'm just calling that as a botch. Because what you got?
My batch, I'm going to AEW because, man, I am sorry, but 4 hours of AEW on a random Wednesday in June, and we're doing it again this week. We joke about Tony Khan knowing how much is too much. 4 hours of wrestling for no reason other than it's just a Wednesday night in your normal broadcast. That is too much wrestling. The first 2 hours of what was considered Dynamite actually was up in the ratings compared to the previous week's numbers, but half of the audience dropped off by the time you got to hour 3 for what they considered the collision portion, those final 2 hours. But the troubling thing is that despite that huge drop off, The final number was still better for the Collision 2 hours than what they get on Saturday nights, which probably means be on the lookout for 4-hour Wednesday night shows. If I'm going to call out and complain that 3 hours of SmackDown is too long, 4 hours,
no, I can't.
No. 4 hours is ridiculous.
No. 4 hours.
Performance of the week, Doug. Now that my old man ranting is done.
Man, performance. I'm going to go with Stephanie Vaquer because so many, I mean, they weren't shy about calling out how many times she'd wrestled in the past 24 hours. And the girl looked super fresh at Money in the Bank, which was our third match this weekend within 24 hours, including travel, to, well, okay, 2 matches in LA, but, 1 elsewhere. So Stephanie Vaquer, and I have such a hard time saying her last name, Vaquer.
Yeah,
Stephanie
I think
Vaquer.
that they've gone from Vaquer to Vaquer, and I think I finally got it. It is Vaquer.
Okay,
I think it's Vaquer.
But
she's amazing. However you want to pronounce
it. Regardless of what she's just great. Love it. And
my performance. I'm sorry.
I was just going to give her some more kudos and accolades, and hope we can get her on the show sometime soon. Go ahead.
Ooh. No, wait a minute. Let's book that. I'm all for it.
I'll get on that.
Performance of the week, man, for me is that crowd in Oklahoma for Raw with the repeated "We Want Truth" chants throughout the entire Raw broadcast. Triple H can pretend in that post Money in the Bank press conference that this has been a storyline all along, but there's no indication whatsoever in this situation that is actually true. There was a backlash, there was an outpouring from fans, and it made WWE course correct. So good on the Oklahoma live crowd, as well as all of the online wrestling community and the wrestlers backstage, everyone that poured out the fact that we want our truth. That man's a national treasure. Bring him back to our TV screens. I think that, and I don't just think it, I would bet I would bet money on the fact that this is not a work. This is just, what have we done? They don't like this. Let's bring him back. And for that reason, kudos to everyone for rallying behind a good dude and getting our truth back on our TV screens. Ron Killings, excuse me.
Ron Killings, yeah.
Love it.
Yep.
Doug, you said a lot of good wrestling, and there was. What would you pick as your match of the week?
Oh, this is hard. I will say my match of the week had Chad Gable in it.
Are you sure? Did you check the nipples? Did you?
It's still a toss-up. I want to go with that Money in the Bank ladder match, but also I really, really, really love where you were with Vikingo in that AAA WWE Worlds Collide main event. It was Chad Gable slowing down Vikingo. I don't think I've ever seen Vikingo work that, and maybe that's why he botched. Maybe that's why he got all tangled up in the ropes, because he wasn't moving 1,000,000 miles an hour and flippity-floppity and flying all over the place. I think Vikingo might be able to have a longer career the more he wrestles a WWE style and limits that spot fest that is his entire resume. I mean, it's why he had to drop the AAA, what is it, the Ultra Mega Super Unknown championship.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Little shout out to Soundgarden there. But, because of an injury, because he never lost it. But we're not going to talk about who he got it back from. That's the Voldemort of professional wrestling in Mexico anyway. So, but okay, yeah, I'm going with the AAA WWE Chad Gable Vikingo match, just because that was just so methodical and just so it clicked on so many levels. It was like a lot of folks who are not really maybe familiar with the WWE style or not into it got brought into it, and a lot of people who are not familiar with this more lucha libre, straight up lucha libre style were brought into it. Oh, and speaking of AAA and lucha libre, special shout out, I cannot wait to see Mr. Iguana as WWE champion someday.
You're going to give me a segue here in a second. Before I get into that match of the week, I'm going with the other Chad Gable match. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The El Grande Americano match.
Yes.
that men's Money in the Bank ladder match, it had everything. That is one of the better examples of the Money in the Bank gimmick match.
Mm-hmm.
It was excitement from beginning to end. You had two major storyline advancements: the Solo Sikoa Fatu break, and then Seth getting like his men in check for the next ongoing gimmick on when is he going to cash in and on whom. Right. Just a great Money in the Bank ladder match. And that leads us to the segue, Doug, of Lucha Libre, what happened at Worlds Collide. Yesterday, obviously, we had WWE AAA co-production Worlds Collide. Next week, we will have a Grand Slam Mexico in collaboration with AEW and their Mexican partner, CMLL. It's a great time for us to take the pulse of WWE's acquisition of AAA, which is what we're doing on next week's show, how it's looked thus far, how it's already affecting the entire Lucha community and industry. You will not want to miss it. Until then,
go watch some wrestling and check out Mr. Iguana. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
See ya.